My name is Danny Parker, as far as you know. The first thing that I want to do is just say how glad I am to be here. You are literally helping me fulfill my destiny of trying to get in front of as many people as possible and help them find their happiness. Let me ask you this, just straight off. Which of you will not raise your hand under any circumstances during this? I'm going to call that inconclusive. So we're not going to do any of that. We're not going to do any of that silliness of raising our hands. That's just crazy talk. But instead, if I ask you, a question and you agree, or we'll just do that. About 10 years ago, I started down this road, the journey that I'm on now, and that I will be on the rest of my life. And this journey was to improve my health and improve my happiness. But in the beginning, it was basically just trying to get healthy. The first hurdle that I came across was all of those times that I'd heard motivational speakers and they just didn't resonate with me. I mean, the ones, that is like, you have to have a plan and you must stick with the plan and you have to be focused and you got to do all this. And I was just sort of like, me, I'm just always, it didn't stick on me because I was just like, focus, I can't do that. Or there was the motivational speakers or the books or whatever that would say, these are the things you need to do to become a billionaire, blah, do this and do this and do this. And my whole thing was just always like, I just want to wake up in the morning and not feel like crap. I'll put being a billionaire further down the road. Once I can wake up in the morning and feel like I had a good night's sleep, then I'll work on becoming a billionaire. So that was sort of where I was coming from when I was setting off on this journey, and it's been really amazing, I must say. So before I get into this, I have to read my little disclaimer here. I'm not a doctarian or a scientician, whatever those are. So I have no qualifications other than the fact that I just did this myself. And it works. Just lots and lots of research. And everything I say, I want you to do your own research. If something resonates with you, go and look it up and see what you can find and see what works for you. That's what this is all about. Today, it's the mind, and I've broken down, to make this sort of easier to understand, I've broken this down into 3 parts: past, present, and future. I put a lot of thought in this, and I believe that if we're looking at our past and we're exploring why we are the way that we are. I mean, just as people in general, why we are this way. And then look at the present, at how we are, that then we can really shape our future. So we're basing this on how we got here, what we are now, and then what we can do in the future. So that's just sort of like, gives you a general idea where we're going today. The only way that we can accomplish anything or that we can do anything or that we really can find happiness is to change. And change is really, really hard. I mean, change is what everybody talks about improving yourself, about, making a better life and all that sort of stuff. But you have to realize that change isn't hard because we lack motivation or because we're stupid or we're just plain lazy. We are living things, and as living things, we are not meant to change. So if you think about it, human beings or anything anything that is alive today is around because we don't change, because we do the same thing every day. That is how we survive, and that's how we have survived all of this time. So if you think about it in the animal world, when a squirrel gets up in the morning, it goes and it hunts nuts, because that's what it's been doing forever. And it isn't supposed to change. It's supposed to get up in the morning and go look for nuts. So for me, when I started going down that path of thinking about us as a human being, as a being on this planet, we are not our age. Whatever age we are, we're not actually our age. We are thousands, hundreds of thousands of years old. I mean, if you stop and think about it for a second, think about all of the people that came before you, all of the thousands and thousands of people that led us to be here today, sitting in this room, chatting together through hundreds of thousands of years. All of a sudden, I was just kind of like, holy crap, this is really, really amazing. And so we have all of these things that are in us that have been part of us as a human being for hundreds of thousands of years. We didn't just pick them up during our lifetime. These are things that are in us, that make us who we are, that make us get up in the morning and make us happy, make us survive, make us all those things. And one of the systems that we have in us, and almost all animals have this, it's called the reticular activating system. Or I'd call it our little voice, okay? So right now you're thinking, the rectangular banana suction, what is this reticular? You don't have to know the words. The words aren't important. What the reticular activating system is it's kind of a filter that living beings have inside of them that sort of like sifts out the things that we don't really care that much about, but recognizes the things that we do care about, the things that we do care about. So think of it in terms of it's not necessarily a moral compass. It's just a system that all living beings have working for them. So essentially, if you are, and this is the best example, and I'm sure this has happened to all of you. The best example is you get a new car. You get a new Honda Civic. Doesn't matter if it's new to you. You get a new Honda Civic. All of a sudden, you see Honda Civics everywhere. Your mind didn't suddenly create Honda Civics everywhere. Your brain just all of a sudden started noticing them because that became important in your head. And that was something that you were thinking about. And so it's not a moral thing. It's not a matter of importance. It's not value. This system doesn't have any of those things in it. It just notices whatever it is that you're thinking about. So if you're someone who says, oh, life is great, but something always comes along and ruins it. Well, your brain is going to stand right up and say, see, there's the thing that ruined it. Just think about that as like your little voice. So it's the little voice in your head that keeps saying, oh, I'm not very happy today. I don't like people in traffic. People are slowing me down. When you're in traffic, man, you're going to see all those people that are slowing you down. So just think of it as like the little voice, the banana hair extension activating rectangular system, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like your little voice. Another system that we all have that all works for us and against us is our conscious and subconscious minds. And you've probably heard of these before, but what's really, really crazy about it is that our subconscious mind is like 92% of what we do, what we think, and what happens to us every single day. And then only 8% of it is our conscious mind. So again, going back to the traffic kind of thing, you're going to work in the morning. You don't have to think, all right, where do I turn left? You don't have to think, how do I start the car? You don't have to think, did I put my shoes on? You don't have to think, that is all part of your subconscious mind. The things that you do just without thinking about them. Your brain just provides you all that information because it's already in there. And the conscious mind in that sort of scenario of driving to work is if you're driving to work and it's the same way you go, every day, you've done it a bazillion times, and all of a sudden there's a diversion. You're like, oh no, the bridge is out. Then all of a sudden your brain goes, oh crap, I have to think? That's your conscious mind. That's where all of a sudden your brain has to think, because we just get used to not having to. And that's how it is supposed to be. It's not like it's not working properly. That's just how it works. We have to have all of these things in our subconscious mind in order so that we can deal with life in general. Otherwise, we'd have to think every single time, how do I brush my teeth again? Do I go up and down, or do I, it's there for good reason. Well, I say most people it's 8% conscious and 92% subconscious. Mine's 90% subconscious. The other 2% is cartoons. So it's just a little bit different for me. Everybody's the same. But again, that's another reason why change is hard. It's not because it's not good. It's not because we decide it's not good for us. It's just it's our own inner workings. Everybody has this. Everybody's conscious and subconscious minds are unique, and everybody's reticular activating system is unique because we make that ourselves. It's a system we all have, but we make it our own based upon our decisions and our life and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so, and then another reason why change is so hard is our upbringing. So again, going back to this idea of us being older than we actually are, I mean, this hit me like at Christmas. I love Christmas. But I was thinking this Christmas about some of the traditions that I have that I do every year and that my family does and those sorts of things. And I was just kind of like, why am I eating these yicky old Aunt Carrie's cookies? I don't like Aunt Carrie's cookies. And I'm just like, oh, well, that's because it's not my Aunt Carrie, it's my mom's Aunt Carrie, and she called them Aunt Carrie's cookies, and she always made those cookies, so we always have those cookies. Well, Aunt Carrie, she must have gotten that recipe from someone, and that was her tradition. And perhaps her grandparent or someone got it from someone else. So here I am today in 2021, and I'm eating these cookies, and I never decided these are the best cookies I'll ever have. I'm going to have these cookies. This is my decision. It's my life. You know, it's tradition. Well, the same thing is true for the way that we think. It can be. I mean, it's just one of the strong influencers of the way that we think, how we cope with stress, how we celebrate, how we show anger. All of those things that come from our parents, from their parents, just like a tradition, like a Christmas tradition. You just get it. It comes along with you. And again, it's not like you've decided that this is how you're going to be. You know, and this isn't about blame. I'm not trying to say blame your parents or your ancestors or anything like that. Although I blame my parents for pretty much everything, but you shouldn't. I mean, no, you shouldn't. But I do.
You're a tough crowd.
Well, the masks are hiding all the smiles. Yeah, I was at the grocery store last week, and they were out of the chocolate pudding cups. Stupid parents. But yeah, it's not about blame. And then the other thing too, as far as this tradition and stuff is, and there's a real science behind this, is that most of who we are as adults, and back to those what makes us happy and coping skills and what we like and all those sorts of things, that formed in us before we were 7 years old. Because from 0 to 7, children's brain waves are in theta wave all the time. And theta is like the learning, you're a sponge, you're just soaking everything in. So no kid at 6 years old is looking around going, well, I don't think that's the proper way to deal with your guilt, Dad. Or I don't think we should be, singing this way. It's immoral. I mean, you're just going, wow, I love singing. And Dad's a nut. You're just, it's just, you're just a sponge. You're just soaking all this in. So there's another thing that all of us go through that, but it wasn't our choice. So we have these systems that are in all of us that are unique to all of us, but they're completely they're without our control. And then the other thing too is that if you think about like the media, I'm going to use that term just in general because that could be books or TV or movies, or anything like that. If you were lucky, your parents read to you before you can even remember your parents reading to you. You were watching television shows before you can even remember that you were watching television shows. And I don't mean you, I mean we, all of us have. So we have been seeing things and have been exposed to things since before we can even remember. And those are things that are in there. So my point is just sort of that, that thing, like I said before, is that we didn't wake up thinking, I'm going to make my life just exactly the way that I want, and I'm going to change my views and my opinions about all that sort of stuff because I just formed them recently. These are all influences that have happened to us our whole lives that led us to where we are now. And I think the most important part of this is to tie back into that reticular activating system, is that our lives are almost literally whatever we think is what we get. So even though we have all of this stuff from our past and all those sort of things in there, we still have the choice to decide in the morning and just say, today I'm going to have a great day and I'm going to see all those awesome things that are out there for me to see. And if I keep telling myself that, I start noticing those things. And when I start noticing those things, I'm reinforced by that, and my subconscious just goes, yeah, you don't even have to think about it, man. There's great stuff all over the place. So now we're going to talk about what we are. Well, the first thing that we have to realize is, and again, just by the fact that we are here today, we are freaking amazing. Because we're alive, we're amazing, and we need to wrap our brains around that. It's so easy for us to beat ourselves up, and it's just crap because we are amazing, and we're also creative. Every single one of us is creative, and my background is in advertising and art and such things, and I can't tell you how many times when I've told people that that I'm a designer, an artist, and that sort of thing, that I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm not creative. I can't draw." And again, that's one of those things. It's understandable that a lot of people think that way. That creativity has to do with whether you could draw or take a picture or write a song or something like that. And that doesn't have anything to do with it, because we are confusing the end result of creativity with creativity itself. So to be creative, it doesn't have to have a saleable end result. I can be creative today, and at the end of the day, I don't have to have something that goes, all right, I can put this on eBay and sell it because it shows I'm creative. There's no end result to creativity. Now, creativity is how we do problem solving. I have been in hundreds of creative meetings as part of advertising. And when I finally got to the point in my career where I could drive these creative meetings, the first thing that I would say to people, I'd say, okay, this is our agenda. This is what we hope to accomplish. And then the second thing was, there are no bad ideas. And do not think of an idea and then talk yourself out of it before you say it. Just say it. There aren't any bad ideas, because I can't tell you how many times that during the process of throwing out all of these ideas that wouldn't work, that a combination of two will work, or one thought will lead somebody else to another thought that might lead to a really fantastic idea. And if that first person had gone, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not going to say anything, it never would have happened. So we all have to realize that we are creative people. And again, we didn't survive as human beings to this point by not being creative. If creativity wasn't important, we wouldn't be creative now. We would be extinct. So just keep that in mind. We are just awesomely creative. As soon as we decide that we are creative beings, we will start seeing our own creativity and appreciating our own creativity and see that we are creative, and that whole idea of not being creative will just disappear. I promise you. And then the other thing too is that, and I dealt with this a lot when I was growing up, because my dad had this thing about laziness. That was one of the things that he would say. Oh, you're, and he wasn't mean or anything, but he was just always say to people, oh, well, that guy's just, he's just lazy. He's not doing that because he's lazy, or so-and-so is just lazy. And so that was one of those things, like I said, before 7 years old, that I heard my dad saying, and I blame him for that, is I heard my dad saying, and so that's one of those things that kind of stuck with me. And so for me, it's really, really important, and it was a really good, learning experience for me about this idea of being lazy, because again, human beings are not lazy. If we were, we wouldn't be here. Just people have worked hard so that we are here now. One of the things that I always go back to, when I'm looking for a good analogy, or it just pops into my head or whatever, is because I have this little backyard, and there are bunnies and squirrels in my backyard, and I'll watch the bunnies and squirrels, and it makes me happy, and all that. But I was thinking about this whole idea of being lazy, and I'm watching the bunnies, and if you've ever watched bunnies, you know, their lives, pretty much all they do is just lay around. I mean, you think about it, they just lay around, and they hop a little bit. You know, you see them hop, and they'll move here, and then they'll just lay there and eat. Oh, this dandelion is so good. Oh, there's another dandelion. They hop over, and they'll eat that one. I mean, that's all bunnies do. You know, if you were to look at a bunny, you would just go, crap, bunnies are really lazy, all right? Now, but if you think about it, bunnies can run really, really super fast. I don't know if you've ever seen them run, especially like when they come out at like dusk. They're gray, it's gray outside. When they run, you can't see them, they're moving so fast, right? But bunnies only run to survive. They only run just a little bit of the time, okay? So, because, I mean, you don't see bunny motivational speakers going, you need to run, you've only run 2 times today, bunny, you need to run, run, run. You call yourself a rabbit, you're no rabbit. Bunnies don't feel bad because they only run every once in a while, but here we are as human beings, we're like, oh, I am so lazy, I should, whatever, insert thing here, you know. We only work as hard as we need to survive. That is a natural living being instinct, all right? So, and you know, and for me to put that in real terms, in real life, practical, modern day terms, a couple of years ago, I was having lunch with an old friend of mine. He was also a graphic designer in advertising, and he worked for one agency his whole career, and I worked for a lot of different ones and worked for myself most of my career. But we were sitting, we're talking about our careers, and you know, we had a lot in common, our upbringing and stuff like that. And we even worked together for a while. But anyway, so we were chatting, and he looked at me and he kind of paused, and he goes, you know, Dan, he goes, you've worked really hard to get where you are. And I was just like, I was kind of blown away by that. I was just like, wow, that was really nice of him to say that. And I said, wow, thank you so much. You know, I feel like I have. But then it kind of started sinking in, and then I realized, you know, I have worked really hard to get where I am, but I only worked just hard enough. So I could have worked harder and made more money, or I could have worked harder and become more well-known. I could have worked harder but I worked just hard enough to be exactly where I am. So that is like a real live lesson for all of us, whether it's, you know, it's not necessarily about a profession. It's just it's a life lesson. We work just hard enough, just enough that we have to survive. Now, if we were all living in conditions the way they were 10,000 years ago, we'd all have to be more tough, and we wouldn't have to go exercise and do these things. We just naturally would, because we'd have to survive. So there again, this is who we are and how we are, so we can just sort of give ourselves a break, because, you know, that's just how, you know. And again, you've heard people say we only use 10% of our brains, you know. Well, that's all we have to. I mean, I don't have to use my whole brain when I'm driving to the store, you know. I'm going to the store. I'm using as little of my brain as I can possibly. What, I'm going to go to the store and decide, on the way to the store, I'm going to develop renewable biofuels. You know what I mean? We only use 10% because that's all we have to. I mean, I'm being generous to myself by saying I use 10%. Oh yeah, another important thing, you know, along these same lines is we need to embrace our accomplishments. A few years ago, as just a mental exercise, when I was starting on my journey as a mental exercise, I don't know if I read this somewhere or whatever, but I wanted to see where I was as far as what my goals were and what I wanted to do or whatever when I first started my career. So when I was 22, what was it that I wanted when I was 22? What was I working toward? I wanted a nice house. I wanted a couple nice cars. I wanted to be able to travel, and I wanted a beautiful wife. And while I'm sat there doing this exercise, I stopped and I just went, "Holy crap! I have these things. I have arrived, and I didn't just arrive today. I've had these things for years now, and you know, I knew that my life was great and all that sort of stuff, but I never reached that point where I went, yes." I have attained everything that I was hoping for when I was 22. You know, I mean, it's not like, I mean, you know how it is. It just kind of creeps up on you. It just kind of happens. It's not like when you pay off your mortgage. You know, there's a day when you pay off your mortgage and you can go, screw you, bank. You know, I'm done. I've got no more debt. Yay! There's a moment when that happens. And so I think that this happens to a lot of us where we don't ever really stop and recognize what we've accomplished. And I don't mean what I've accomplished in your eyes or in the world's eyes or in society's eyes or whatever. I just need to feel good about what I've accomplished. Even if I haven't accomplished everything, I've accomplished something. I'm here. I'm awake. I'm happy. I'm enjoying life. You know, it's just one of those things where we need to embrace our accomplishments in order to feel good about us at this moment. Not I will feel good when I feel good right now. I feel really good right now because you're all so polite and listening to me. So just to sort of review, you know, we're all awesome. We're creative. We are very hardworking people. We really, really are. I'm going to throw out a bunch of ideas here. And again, this is like a creative meeting. You might think some of them are really terrible or that I'm from outer space or something like that. But I think that if you think about it, these are logical things, and like a lot of the things that I'm saying here, they're logical, but you just need to maybe think a little bit differently for it to kind of sink in. I mean, it makes sense and all, but just keep an open mind. This was one of the really, really important things that I think we all need to know, and especially people like you, people that your life is helping other people. I think it's really important because I mean we know that you're good people. I mean that just goes without saying, and that we all know the value of putting others first. I mean that's just what we learned in Sunday school. I mean you put other people first. But when you and when we get on an airplane and they're going through the safety instructions, what is the very first thing that they say? They say, in case of cabin depressurization, an empty margarine cup will drop from the ceiling. Put it on your nose and mouth, and save yourself, and then help those around you. They don't say, put the margarine cup on your face and say, screw you, you're on your own. Save yourself first. And this is something that I think you're all already doing is you are looking out for the people around you. But how much more good can we do if we ourselves are already in this really, really good place where we feel like we have the value that we really do? So if So for me, this. I already have my margarine cup on, and I'm helping all of you. I'm trying to help you put your margarine cup on. This is one of the things that it's just, I never really even thought about. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a writer. She's helping me write a book that's called My Nano Steps, and we'll get into that later. But she and I were talking about a lot of these things, and we were sort of in this section, and she has known me for 25, 30 years, something like that. And, we were chatting back and forth, and I sort of skimmed over something, and she was like, no, wait, go back to that. And she goes, Dan, you do something that most people, or a lot of people don't do. And she goes, you keep trying things. And I was just like, well, I don't know what that means. She goes, no. She goes, that's my point. She said, you don't know that you do this. She goes, you keep trying things. She goes, there's a huge value to that, to tell people that, to keep trying stuff. Because just to make it easy, and again, it's because of tradition and because of what we've known, we are taught at a very early age to think in straight lines. It's much easier to teach and to think in straight lines. We're taught to make a goal, stick with that goal, have a plan, stick to it, make a beeline to that end goal. Well, just think how much better the world would be if we were taught, you have all sorts of talents, try different things. If you try this, give it your best try. Try this, go for that. This whole idea of like, oh, well, you know, when I was in 5th grade, I tried the trumpet. And I didn't really fancy it. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, like we learn when we're little kids, after a 30-second montage in a movie with the music, we're playing the trumpet, or we're a whole new person. You know, you just think, I should just be able to do this, da, da, da. And it didn't suit me. And so it was one of those things, though, that I felt bad, and, you know, there were other people who kind of made me feel bad because I didn't stick with it. Well, if it's not bringing me joy, I can try something else. And so I tried the drums, and I tried different guitars. And it turns out that I'm actually a very musical person. But I could have just went, well, I'm not musical. I tried that, it didn't work, that was a failure. To me, the only failure is not trying. Just try. This whole fail thing, it's just, we're so worried. You know, you're in the 2nd grade and the teacher asks a question and you raise your elbow and you say, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and she's like, no, that's wrong. However she says it, if you're wrong, you feel bad. And that sticks with you. That's the kind of crap that like ruins people's lives. And I'm not saying that it's wrong or that shouldn't be done or whatever. What I'm saying is, if we're aware of that, we can get ourselves around that. Again, that's just part of our reticular activating system. It's part of our subconscious mind. We have control over those. Though we control what we think. What we think is what we get. So just try stuff. Just, you know, oh my gosh. I believed up until just in the last 15 years that the only thing that I was good at doing was being a graphic designer. And I know a lot of people would be like, wow, you're a graphic designer. I was just sort of like, yeah, I'm a graphic designer. But as soon as I started doing other things, trying other things, I began to realize, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually really good at stuff that I never really thought that I would be any good at all. Well, if I had decided, well, I'm no good at that, and how often have we said things like that? Oh, I'm a bad speller. I don't know how to spell. Every time I try to spell something, it's wrong. Or I'm no good at, you know, insert thing here. We're killing all of these avenues of possible joy that are out there. We're doing that to ourselves. But that's just part of our nature, is to do that. One of my favorite stories, because again, you know, I would always run into these, you know, ideas that motivational speakers were saying, you know, you got to have a plan, and you got to stick to the plan, and you got to, you know, focus and, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I was just always sort of like, I was just like, well, I'll just try this. I'll just try that. Not necessarily career-wise, but just, you know, just try things. And so I don't know if any of you have heard of George Lazenby. He was an actor that he was James Bond for one James Bond film in 1969, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, George Lazenby. Yes, I've heard of George Lazenby. Who hasn't? And he has this really cool story about how he became James Bond. And I'm just going to paraphrase it quickly and badly here. He became James Bond. No, what he did was he was like a farmer in Australia, or as they say, Australia. And one of his friends, you know, was like, you know, man, they're doing, like, having auditions for male models, and you should just give that a try. And he was just like, okay, I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try. And so he went, and he had just the right look at just the right time. He had that zeitgeist. And so he just became this amazing model. I mean, just going all over the world, making all this money. And he was just sort of like, you know, his attitude was just like, well, all I basically do is just show up, you know? And I was like, wow, how awesome would that be? Just all you got to do is just show up. It's like gym class, you know? You just put on the right clothes and just show up. You get an A. And so George Lazenby's getting A's all over the place. And so at some point, he's in a meeting or someone's talking or whatever, and they say, well, Sean Connery's not going to be James Bond anymore, and they're looking for a new James Bond. You should give it a shot. And he was just sort of like, I'll give it a shot. And, and he's a really cool guy. I mean, he has a lot of confidence, which helps. But he did some finagling and some things in order to get his interview with, with the producers and all that sort of stuff. And they just loved him. Put him in this movie. He made this movie, and he pretty much pissed off every single person that he ever spoke to having to do with that movie. The producers wound up not liking him. His co-stars didn't like him very much. It was just one of those things where he was young, and he got full of himself, and so they didn't ask him back, right? So a lot of people, and he got a lot of grief because he was only James Bond once, right? And I'm just like, James Bond once? He was James Bond once. Fewer men have played James Bond than have walked on the moon, and he was one of them. And he was getting grief from people saying, you were only James Bond once. He was James Bond once. And so, for me, that just sort of validated my whole idea of just try stuff. Just have confidence and try stuff. You don't have anything, you don't have anything to lose. So anyway, but yeah, I love that George Lazenby story. And again, just alternatives, creative, just try stuff. Just try. The failure is not trying. The other thing that we need to do is to become acutely aware of our little voice. So we're going back to the rectangular accounting system, going back to our reticular activating system and our little voice. We have to really, really start listening. That was one of the biggest keys for me was really listening for my little voice, okay? And the key here is to listen for your voice, but not listen to your voice. Because you got to listen for it first, because it's in there all the time. All of a sudden, I just realized, I'm like, wow, my little voice just said, ugh, why did I put that in the sink rather than putting it in the dishwasher? My little voice said, well, you better take the bin out now because you're going to forget if you don't do it now. Okay, that's our little voice. Our little voice says lots of things, and it's very helpful to us. But we have to become aware of what our little voice is saying to us, because a lot of times it's saying stuff to us that isn't good for us. Sometimes our little voice is saying things like, oh, you'll never amount to anything, or you'll mess this up, or you're going to fall down, or you're going to fail, or, it's horrible what our little voice says to us. If our little voice was a friend of ours that came to the house, you wouldn't invite them back. So we have to be aware that we have that voice and listen for that voice. And then once we're listening to it, then we have to go, all right, you can just piss off, because that's the biggest load of crap, and I'm not going to buy into it. But we have to be aware that voice first. We have to make sure we're listening for it, so that when it does say those things, that we can immediately say, shut up. Another thing that this was really another big one for me was practicing forgiveness. And I call it aggressive forgiveness. And this is, again, it sort of ties into, for me, it sort of tied into my little voice. I mean, and it's not just about forgiving ourselves, but it's forgiving within ourselves, this sort of aggressive forgiveness. So like, for example, let's say because we definitely need to forgive ourselves, because carrying old regret with us, it damages us. It damages us every single day. We are carrying damage with us because we are carrying regret. And we need to forgive ourselves, because we cannot undo what it was that we did. And we know we're never going to ever do that again, so we don't need to keep reminding ourselves. And so I have this aggressive forgiveness, and I do this for myself, and in a way it's a way of forgiving other people as well. So the aggressive forgiveness, and this is one of those things that it's going to sound kind of weird, but it really, 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 really works, really. Okay, so that feeling when you're in your house and something reminds you of a thing that makes you feel bad. And it isn't necessarily something that you did wrong or that someone else did wrong, but essentially you get the idea that there's this moment or thing that reminds you, and you have that feeling in your chest. You know that bad feeling when you're just sort of like, ugh. And you just remember that experience that was bad. Okay. While we still have that at that moment, again, you have to be aware of that. While we have that moment that we feel that way inside of us, that we just have that feeling, we have to immediately start thinking, I forgive myself for that. Say that in your head. I forgive myself for that. While you're feeling that feeling, you say, I forgive myself for that. I forgive myself for that. I need to let it go. I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go. I'm letting that go. And you think about that thing while you're saying, I'm letting this go. I'm letting this go. I'm forgiving myself. Forgiving myself. While you have that feeling of that knot in your chest or your stomach or whatever, and you keep saying, keep repeating, I forgive myself, I forgive myself, I forgive myself. Or if it's another person that has made you feel that way about something in the past, you say, I forgive them for that, I forgive them for that, I forgive them for that. You have that feeling, and you keep repeating that, I'm letting it go, I forgive them, I forgive myself. You keep repeating that until you feel that feeling go away. Basically, you're turning off that regret. You're replacing that with forgiveness. And there were some things in the beginning of practicing this. There were even some things where, I said it out loud. It was something that bothered me so much that I would say it out loud. I would say, I forgive them for that, forgive them for that. And I would keep saying it until that feeling went away. And there are some things where you have to, the next time that memory comes back, you have to do it again. And you may have to do it several times. And it may take practice for you to do this to get to do it. But I'm telling you, it absolutely works. And so, at some point then for me, I would be doing something in my house, and all of a sudden I would realize that I didn't have that memory, that bad experience associated with that particular place or thing anymore. And I was just like, holy crap, it works. It absolutely, totally works. And going along those same lines too is that we have to own our past. How do I explain this? Okay, so you went on a vacation recently, and someone says to you, "So how was your vacation?" And you say, "Oh, it was great. I went to the beach, and the food was really awesome, and that sort of stuff." And so when you think about your recent vacation, and I'm just using that as an example, you think about your recent vacation. You aren't playing an actual minute-by-minute documentary in your mind of your vacation. You're focusing on little bits and pieces that happened, and when you recall that, you're not necessarily recalling it exactly the way that it happened. So it's because these are your memories, and they're filtered through you as they're coming into you, and they are filtered by your other experiences that are inside of you and all that sort of stuff. And you also will share things with people that you think that they would like to hear. Maybe being on the beach doesn't resonate with some people. Somebody doesn't really fancy the beach, so you would say, well, the food is really awesome. These are our memories. This is our past. We own that, and we make that what we want. So I'm not saying that you can say, oh, I didn't steal gum when I was 5 from the grocery store. I'm not saying that you can erase the past. I'm saying that I can make my past whatever it is that I want to, because I already do. So there's no real reason for me to think about the bad things in my past. I can choose not to, because it's mine. I don't have to hold these things just in case someone cracks me open one day and just goes, well, let's see if you were holding anything back, mister. You stole gum when you were in the 5th grade. Just let it go. Our past is our past. We can make it whatever we want. The best example, and this is another James Bond story. 10 years ago or so, I went to see a James Bond film. Hardly anybody in the theater. You know how it is. You get in there, you can choose your perfect seat. I'm right smack in the middle this way. I'm right smack in the middle this way. I'm like, oh, I'm right there. The screen's right in front of me. watching the previews and all that sort of stuff. Just before the movie starts, somebody comes in and sat right in front of me, right? It's happened before, right? I mean, it's not like this guy's head was that big. It was big, but it was just right there. And I'm thinking, well, now I'm only getting like 3/4 of the screen, or 5/8 or 7/12 or some other fraction that I don't understand. I'm not getting the whole screen, right? So I watched it. I did my best to, I wasn't too ticked off about it, really was. And so the next day it dawned on me when I was thinking about the movie, or I was telling somebody about it. I was like, wait a minute. I can picture that movie in my head. There's no black spot where that guy's head was. My brain filled in the rest. That's my memory of that movie. I made that movie what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to fill up the whole screen, and it did. So we just need to own our past, let it go. Just let the past go. It does us no good. We need to define our success. That sounds like one of those stupid catchphrases. I mean, if I heard somebody say that to me, I'd just be like, oh God, he's one of those define your success guys. But we do. We need to define our success. And we're getting into the fun part now. The first part of defining our success is to think of ourselves in the first person. I know this sounds crazy, but if you're anything like me, and I hope that you're not, but if you're anything like me, I always used to think when I would talk to myself and try to motivate myself, I would say things like, you need to get up earlier in the morning, or you need to stop swearing so much, or you need to, all that sort of stuff. Well, what we all need to do is to think of ourselves in the first person. This sounds like something simple and kind of silly, but it's really, really powerful, all right? So when you write something down for yourself, and when you have a thought for yourself, you need to say, I need to, or I am going to, or this is my. Do you see what I mean? It seems weird. It seems like a subtle difference, but you got to own who you are and what you're all about. And I'm not saying that to the mirror. I'm not saying that to bounce off somebody else. I'm saying that to me. I am owning me. And everything that I do will be my success. It wasn't because I said, you need to do this. It's because I did that. So first person, just think in terms of first person. And I really, really seriously, I want you all to write down right now on your paper, I want you to write down, I am awesome. And I hope that makes you feel good when you write that, because it should, because it really is true. So we're going to work on a couple of lists. We're not going to actually do the lists today because it's not that kind of thing. I'm going to tell you what they are. The first list is, and this is really, really cool. If I could do anything, and there are no limitations here. I mean, that's what this list is all about, is that there are no limitations. So it wouldn't matter how much it costs, or how much time it would take, or how much work it would require on your part, or anything. It can be literally anything. Now, when I first thought about this, I thought, well, I should probably put a thing on there that would say, it can't be something like, if I could do anything, I wish I could jump so high I could touch the moon. At first I was going to say, don't put stuff like that on there. It should be something that you can really actually do. But actually it's not. I mean, if that's something, if you could do anything, and that's one of them, it's something that's impossible, I think that might even say more about you. And I think that goes along with this whole idea of what I was saying earlier, of just try things. Just do anything. There aren't any bad ideas. Now keep in mind, with these lists aren't to show me or aren't to show anyone. This is only for you. And so there are probably, if you're doing it right, there are probably going to be some things on there that might be kind of embarrassing. I don't know why I looked at you when I said that. there are probably going to be some things on there that might be kind of embarrassing. That's okay. And the list is going to be messy. You may write stuff down at first and then cross them off, later. I mean, that's what this whole exercise is about. It's working with that. It's creating the list. It's about making your mind start to imagine. Because when I first did this, seriously, I was shocked. I couldn't write the first thing. I was just like, if I could do anything. I mean, I had so many years where I was so unhappy by the time I was doing this, by the time I had started my journey, that I was amazed that I couldn't even think of something. Because I had just gotten to the point where my imagination, I didn't even think of fun things to do because I knew I wouldn't do them. I knew I couldn't do them. I wasn't going to do them. So for me, that was one of the most enlightening parts of doing this list, was just realizing I didn't already have things on my list. Because if you would have asked me when I was a kid, when you're a kid, your imagination is incredible. When you're just out of school and you're idealistic and your mind is going, wow, all these ideas and all this sort of stuff. You can think of all sorts of things. You're like, you're a kid. You're like, I'm going to invent blue bananas, and I'm going to make rocket boots, and I'm going to, all of these sorts of things. And now it was just sort of like, I don't know. And so I had to go back in time and remember back when I was in my 20s, and just go, okay, well, what would that list have been when I was in my 20s? And there aren't any right or wrong answers here. I just used that as a trigger to kickstart my brain. Because when I was in my 20s, I would have done this, I would have, this and this and this, and I was just like, yeah, that would have been really cool. And then once my brain got going, I kept thinking about it, going back to the list, and I'd think of things when I was in the shower or, making dinner or whatever, and I'd write it on the list, and that's what the list is all about. The list isn't about the list, it's about making the list, it's about thinking of the list, it's about working the list into your list. The second list that I want you to work on are, and it's different, things that bring me joy. So if I could do anything, these are things that you want to do. Where the things that bring me joy, these are things that you know from experience that give you joy. And this should be a big list. This should be a really, really fat, messy list. And you'll have answers that will lead you to other answers, and you'll start to find common things. So again, there aren't any wrong answers. These are your own personal thoughts. So for me, I had difficulty with this list as well. Although I made this list after I had already started on this other list, so I'd already sort of got my imagination going and visualization going, and. But yeah, so when my list first started out, things that bring me joy, I was just sort of like, well, I can't really think of anything, so I'm just going to write down my pillow. Seriously, my first answer was my pillow. My second answer was central air conditioning. I mean, seriously, it was stuff like that, and that's okay. That is totally okay. But again, that taught me something about myself, where I was just sort of like, man, I need to search for some frickin' joy in my life, because I know it's there. It really, really is. One of the big things that got me going on this was when I wrote down mowing the lawn. I love to mow the lawn. And again, this is part of the process here. We will get into it. But I was just kind of like, okay, it's usually hot. I get sweaty. It's work. It's kind of boring. Why is that on my list? Why does that bring me joy? And so again, this is why we're making these lists, is once we start getting a nice big list, start diving into those things, and you'll find common things that connect the different parts of your list. And I was just kind of like, well, I love mowing the lawn. One of the reasons is because it uses a part of my body and a part of my brain that I don't normally use. And so for me, it really clears my head. It's really, it's just really cathartic or lethargic or one of those argic words. And then also what I like about it is the before and after effect. I walk out there and I'm like, and then an hour later, I'm like, my lines are straighter than anyone else in the neighborhood. Look at that. I am awesome. I didn't look in the mirror and say, you are awesome. I said, I am awesome. So I realized then that keen before and after effect, that little shot of dopamine that my body gives me after I've done that says, you did good. That was awesome. Go do something else like that. Here's your little reward. And then I went and I looked at my list and I'm just like, I'm finding these other things that I wasn't thinking before and after effect. I was just writing down things that bring me joy. Then I had all these other things in there that also were keyed into that before and after effect. So that tells me something about myself. So we go back and we look at our list and we find common things in those lists and we learn about ourselves and what are the key basic things that trigger us, that really bring us joy. So anyway, so I hope you work on these lists. I mean, it's actually kind of fun. Once you get the momentum going and all that sort of stuff, it's actually pretty fun. Oh, and yeah, one important thing too is that, don't be cynical about your lists. Don't try to put things on your list that you think, and we'll all do it in the beginning, but we put things on our list that we think other people or society would say should be on your list. You're not going to be graded on your list. No one's going to look at your list. You're not putting down things that you should put on your list. That's just totally contrary or against this whole idea. And also, just sort of like to help, things that bring you joy, things that bring me joy, I can't put money down on my list because money is just a tool to buy stuff. So like if I put money down, well then the next question would be, okay, but what would you buy with your money? And then I would say, well, I would buy a really cool car. Okay, well, all right, well that's not really an answer either. What do you like about that car? Now you're getting into what brings you joy. So you get past the sort of practical aspects of whatever the thing is, money, the car, those are tools. What are the feelings that you get? The joy feeling that you get and from something, doing something. I mean, you get the idea. Another thing to think about too is that, we kind of get hung up on this idea of money and happiness, and that all kind of goes together. And again, society and the media and everything just sort of have taught us that from an early age, that money and happiness, success, all that kind of goes together, and it just doesn't. I mean, I'm sure you've heard stories about people who win the lottery and it just completely destroys their lives because the joy doesn't come from the money, and the joy doesn't come from the stuff that you buy with the money. It comes from somewhere else. It comes from inside of us. And money cannot compensate for unclear goals. So if I don't know what I want out of life, or if I don't know what I'm about, having a whole bunch of money doesn't answer those questions. It doesn't fill that gap between where I am and happiness. Yep, here I am. I'm one of those people that's going to talk about gratitude. Oh my God. So boring when I hear someone say, you need to practice gratitude. You need to show gratitude. But it's so true. We wouldn't be hearing that over and over. You wouldn't be hearing it from me right now if it wasn't true. It is so true. And again, this goes back to our reticular activating system and our subconscious and all those things, so that practicing gratitude, we have to practice. The word practice means to do it over and over and over and over and to keep doing it. It's not like practicing gratitude. Eventually you learn how to play the piano. There's no end to practicing gratitude. You don't reach the point where you go, I am gratitude-ish. gratitudinal, whatever that would be. You know, we have to keep doing it. But if we start doing it and we make it part of a regular routine, it becomes part of our reticular activating system. It becomes part of our subconscious, and we just do it naturally. So one of the things that I like to do, and I'm not really good at it, but one of the things that I like to do is when I'm driving in my car, and I'm sat at a traffic light, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just sort of like, oh, this is taking forever, longest light ever. I stop and I go, no, wait a minute. Let's just practice gratitude. This will be much better for me than feeling all angry and ticked off. And so I just look around and I'm just like, okay, I am grateful for that the sun is shining today. I mean, seriously, oh my gosh, am I grateful that the sun is shining today. I am grateful that they put sidewalks at this intersection recently. I mean, in this intersection where I'm at this traffic light in my mind right now. Because now there's, people can walk around here. They don't just have to stop walking the street. And so what happens is, what happens? You start seeing stuff that you're grateful for, and then it just becomes a part of your regular way of thinking. And it raises our spirit. It raises our spirit because we're getting rid of those crappy negative thoughts that we would have been having otherwise with these thoughts of gratitude that we are in the place where we are. I mean, it just has an amazing, powerful effect. And I practice gratitude, one of my favorite times to practice gratitude is when I first wake up in the morning. Because I just have a little period there where I'm just, where I'm awake, but I'm not ready to do anything more, involved than just giving gratitude. I'm just like, well, giving gratitude requires just the smallest amount of effort. That's all I have right now. It's just a little bit of effort. And it has a big, big effect. And speaking of getting up in the morning, oh my gosh, sleep is a huge problem in the world right now. And there are lots and lots and lots of reasons for it. I mean, I blame my parents. I don't know about you guys. But there are lots and lots of reasons for it. But there are things that we can do. We have control over our sleep, and our sleep has control over us. And sleeping poorly has a gigantic effect on how we feel, not just the next day if we sleep badly, but day after day after day after day. Because real science has proved that there are so many systems, so many things going on in our bodies that are replenished and refreshed and redone while we're sleeping, while we're getting good, deep sleep, that if we don't get it, it's lost. And then it's lost again the next night, and it's lost again the next night. So we're getting further and further behind on feeling good every single time we go to sleep. When we wake up in the morning, we should feel refreshed because that's exactly what our body is trying to do for us. It's trying to refresh us. What I want to do now is just sort of like give you some tips on how to sleep better. There are some real simple things that you can do, and I've talked to quite a few people about this, and people are really, really resistant to doing these things, because for some reason we think, oh well, I can go on 4 hours of sleep a night, and I'm fine. Well, you can't. I mean, science says that's just not true. And if you think about it again, we're going back to our ancient selves. Not only have human beings slept every night since there have been human beings, almost all animals on the planet sleep. I think even plants sleep. Sleep is like, it is who we are. It is what makes us healthy, happy, better people is sleep. I think that's part of the reason why sharks are always so pissed off, because sharks don't sleep. Shark, it's morning and the shark just goes, I didn't sleep again. Damn it, I'm just going to eat everything. So anyway, there are some things that you can do. The dynamics of a sleep is, our sleep is broken up into multiple hour-and-a-half segments. So when we fall asleep, we're awake. Then we go into a deep sleep, and then we go back into a light sleep. That's when we dream. From when you're awake to that light sleep, that's generally an hour and a half. That's part of our circadian rhythm. That's part of every single human being. That period is around an hour and a half. I didn't decide to make it that mine, or you didn't decide to make it whatever yours is. We're all in that hour and a half cycle. So we go from awake to light sleep, to light sleep, to light sleep, to light sleep, to awake. So what the key for us to do is, because we generally need about 8 hours of sleep. So if you do 5 of those segments, that's 7.5 hours. Strangely enough, I sleep 7.5 hours. So I'm really dialed into that. And you can dial in when you fall asleep and when you want to wake up, to the point to where you won't even need an alarm clock anymore. And chances are a lot of you are at a point now where you really wouldn't even need an alarm clock. You just get up at the same time every day, if you've been on the same schedule for any length of time. And that's because our body likes cycles. We like rhythms. We like things. It's natural. It's nature. It's not just humans, but it's everything. So ideally, what you want to do is to figure out what time you want to wake up. So if you want to wake up feeling fresh, you wake up on the light sleep at 6 o'clock. That means you need to be falling asleep at 10 o'clock. That's 7.5 hours. That's 8 hours. So all you have to do is just make sure that you're nice and comfy and cozy in bed at 10 o'clock. And after a little while, you'll get your circadian rhythm timed into your lifestyle, and you'll get up at 6 o'clock, and you will feel refreshed, because your alarm won't be waking you up when you're in deep sleep, when you're out of sync of what your hour and a half rhythms are. So the end result is to wake up at a certain time and do the math backwards to figure out when you should fall asleep. And you may say, well, I'm only going to do 4 of those, because I only want to sleep, whatever the math would be for that. But anyway, it's just total science of that. That's not just something that somebody thought this up. It's the real thing. And what I had to do in order to get my sleep on track was, and I have a rule where no devices, no technology after 7 o'clock at night. And it wasn't easy. And then I turned the lights down at 8 o'clock or at 9 o'clock. And then because you want to be in bed and you want to be asleep at 10 so that you can wake up refreshed. But I don't know, during the summertime, man, I like getting up at 5 o'clock or 4:30 or 4 o'clock. It's freaking awesome. It's like you can sneak up on the world. Everybody else is asleep and it's light out, and you're just kind of like, this is weird. It's the world that I know, but everyone is asleep. It's light out, it's warm, but everyone is asleep. And the other thing too is like you gotta cut out the caffeine. Gotta cut out the caffeine. If you're drinking caffeine throughout the day, it's going to throw off your sleep, and there is nothing that you can do to get that caffeine out of there. It's going to throw your sleep off. And so what people think is like, well, I want to keep the lifestyle that I have exactly the way that I have it, but I want to get good sleep. So I'm going to take some medicine, or I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to add this thing, I'm going to do that in order so that I get good sleep. Well, just knock out the caffeine. But we'll get to that. You can get rid of the caffeine in little teeny tiny little nano steps. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about morning routine. Some of the most famous and most successful people in the world all have a morning routine. And so what I recommend is, and what I do, what I practice is, when I wake up in the morning, I just stay in bed until I feel good about getting out of bed. And if that means that I have to go to bed earlier so that I wake up sooner, so that I can have more time in bed to sort myself out, then that's what I'm going to do. Because that morning routine and that time to myself in the morning is the most important part of my entire day. And I'm going to get a lot of static on this one, and I do get a lot of static on this one. Do not, the first thing in the morning, look at your phone, look at your device, don't turn on the TV, don't do any of that stuff, because what we are doing when we do that is, we are introducing, the first thing in the morning, we are introducing everyone else's agenda to our day. So I wake up in the morning and somebody else is saying, well, I don't like this politician because Well, now I'm thinking about that. Or I'm watching, the news on television. Well, not only is the news bad enough, that's putting an agenda in your head, but then there are commercials. People are trying to sell you crap that you don't need. So all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, my shirts aren't white enough. You're only 10 minutes after you've woken up and already you're upset because your shirts aren't white because of the stupid commercial that you're seeing on television. I mean, you see what I'm getting at here. Is we're allowing all this crap to come into our day before we even have a chance to start our own day the way that we want to. We can start our day with intention, we can start our day with meditation, we can start our day with visualization. We can do all of these things, and it only takes 10 minutes, 5 minutes, a half an hour. We deserve that. We deserve to set ourselves off on the best path that we possibly can first thing in the morning. Just think how much better you would feel if you're just sort of like, wow, I am all about doing all the stuff that I want and how I feel and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not thinking, politics. I'm not thinking, my stupid shirts. I'm not thinking, my parents and their pudding at the store. So anyway, we have to have a morning routine. Another thing that we need to talk about too is exposing ourselves to nature. And this is a real simple thing, and maybe you already do this, but it's been scientifically proved that even just looking outside at nature just for 1 minute actually will elevate your spirit. That the neurons and things in your brain will fire differently and make you feel better for just a moment of looking outside. So if you can't get outside several times or as much as possible during the day, just at least look outside during the day. It will genuinely lift your spirits. Even if you have to set a timer on your phone so that you do that every 2 hours or every hour or whatever it is. So basically just to wrap up here, I want to talk to you about my nano steps. And again, I want you to write this down on your pad because these need to be your steps. They're not my steps, they're your steps. But you need to write my steps, my nano steps, okay? And I know this for a fact. This is something that works for me, and it goes along with all of the stuff that I've said so far and all the things that I've learned, is that we are amazing, hardworking, smart, creative people. And we can do almost anything, even give up caffeine. We can do almost anything if we decide to, and if the steps are small enough. So the whole concept behind my nano steps is, so let's say, let's just use the caffeine thing. So let's say you drink, we'll just narrow it down to coffee. You drink coffee all day long. Okay. On your list of my nano steps, and everybody's steps are going to be different. On your list on my nano steps would be, I'm going to stop drinking coffee. Okay? Too big of a step. You say, I'm going to have my last cup of coffee at 2 o'clock. And if you can't, you still have to have one at 4, then make it 3:30. That's what nano steps are, is to just whittle away, just little by little by little by little. But what I suggest, though, is when you make your list of nano steps of things that you want to change so that you feel better, so that you're happier, so that when you're really living your life the way that you want to, when you make your list of my nano steps of covering all the things that you want to stop doing, let's say, start with the easiest things first. So if the coffee thing is just too hard, start with something else that is easy. What I always say, it's like paying off debt. So so you have some credit cards, you have the department store card, you have the mortgage, you have the car and all that sort of stuff. You want to pay off your debt. You don't start paying an extra 20 on the mortgage. You start paying an extra 20 on whichever one is the lowest, or as much as you can on the one with the smallest balance. And then once you pay that, little by little by little by little by little, the extra goes there. That's where your extra effort goes. When you pay that one off, oh my gosh, you have a party, number one, we paid off the stupid credit card. then you take that money and you add that on top of the next smallest one, and so on and so on and so on. So with your nano steps, you got those big ones on there, those things that you want to do. I want to smile more. I want to, whatever it is. Do the easy ones first. Do the easy ones first. Those will become part of your subconscious mind. Your reticular activating system will say, I don't even notice that anymore because I totally do that. So the nano steps are just to take the smallest steps possible, because you've heard this before. Even the smallest step in the right direction is a positive step or something like that, right? But it's true. Again, it's really, really true. And again, your list is going to be messy. Put things on your list and you may just go, I can't do that one at all. Just keep adding things to your list. Keep doing things to your list. Your takeaway is we have choices. We may feel a lot of the time that we're at the mercy of the world. Like we're just being carried along with the world and we're doing the best as we go along. I mean, I know we feel like that a lot of the time, but we have choices. Remember, what we think is what we get. So if we're thinking that we can't do it, we can't. If we think that we can do it. If I'm not thinking I'm going to have an awesome day, who's going to come along and make me have one? Nobody. So when we understand ourselves better and we feel good about ourselves, we're infinitely more likely to be creative and make good decisions. I mean, who wants to, when they have the flu or a cold or is just feeling at their worst, you're going to go to that person and just say, all right, we're going to make some big life choices here. All right, give me your best thoughts on, insert, No. So if you just think it from the standpoint of like, I can feel better than I do now. I want to feel better than I do now. I'm going to feel better than I do now. And when I feel awesome, when I'm feeling really, really great, that's when I'm going to make my best decisions. It's kind of a no-brainer, but it's tough. It's really, really tough to think that way. And we need to give ourselves a break. I mean, all that stuff that I said at the beginning, we need to give ourselves a break because we're a product of our past and all of these things that are going on. We need to give ourselves a break. We need to forgive ourselves, forgive other people. We're awesome, amazing people. Because a big part of who we are, it wasn't our choice, but we can choose to be happy. We all have challenges. I mean, that's just a given that we all have challenges, some more than others. But we do already possess everything that we need to be happy. It's all in there. We already have everything that we need in order to be happy. Change is hard. I mean, that's just everything that we've talked about today. We know that change is hard, but if we take small enough steps, we can do anything.